In this video, we're going to take a look at the Sailor Realo. Let's jump straight to the end with my thoughts on this pen. This pen, I find, because of its cost, is frequently overlooked in the world of people who like Sailor pens, and they're missing out because it is such a good writer as a pen, as you would expect from a Sailor pen, and frankly, from a pen of this cost. They're not cheap pens. They're not what I would recommend for the beginning of in a piston filler, but they are absolutely fantastic to use. The fact that it gets wider as you move towards the nib on the body makes it incredibly comfortable in the hand. I love using this pen. I just have to say I wish it was a little bit longer. I find I need to post this pen in order to use it comfortably, and I don't post very many pens, but I will for this one because it does write so well. It gets ignored because of pens like Pelican, which makes fantastic piston fillers. This one, I think, is just as good. You just don't get that M1000 nib as an option. Now that we know how I feel about the Sailor Realo, let's see how I got to that opinion, starting with the unboxing. The Sailor Realo came in a box like this, which contained a box like this, which contained a box like this. I appreciated that this one came in a little bit nicer box than the normal pens that they have, because I do think presentation matters when you're looking at a pen. Now, with that, could it have been a little bit nicer as a package? Sure. But it is also very utilitarian, which really does follow in how a lot of Japanese work is done. When it's fancy, it's super fancy, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. With the pen out of the box, we need to get to the nib. Now, as long as it doesn't take 20 turns to uncap a pen, I generally don't care. So, how many turns does it take to uncap this pen? The Sailor Realo takes 1, 2 1/4 turns to uncap. I do find 2 1/4 turns to be a little more than I would prefer when dealing with a pen if I'm dealing with a note-taking situation. That being said, I think sitting in a classroom with a Sailor Realo might be a little bit much considering you're in a classroom, but I'll use it and I'll get over the excessive amount of turns to uncap. This gets us to the nib. This pen has a gold broad nib. This is a beautiful two-tone nib, and the scroll work on it is the only part of the pen to me that has any kind of real flair. While the rest of it is very subdued in how it looks, the fact that the nib has especially nice work on it, I think is a great touch. It's something beautiful that's kept beneath the hood so that you get to enjoy it when you take it out. If you enjoy videos like this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. Now, let's ink this pen up. The Sailor Realo is a piston filler that holds approximately 1.2 milliliters of ink. The ink for today is Jane Kyanite de Nepal. I find this piston mechanism works as smooth as the best piston mechanisms out there. It's absolutely just, I thought it was broken at one time. I thought it wasn't moving. It was so smooth. And it makes cleaning the pen out when I get to that incredibly easy. As a habit, I don't normally post my pens, but some pens need to be posted to be used comfortably, and some people prefer to post their pens. This pen can post, and the thing is, depending on the size of your hands, you may feel a need to. It's right on that cusp, so some days I feel like posting it, some days I don't, and I am not a regular pen poster. So when I do, I tend to post very gently like I did there so that I don't mar the material. In my hand posted, I feel that it's a great length and I like the girth of the pen. Unposted, depending on the day, sometimes I just don't like where it ends. Majority of the time, I'm really good with it though. Now, the important part, the writing sample. As I stated, this pen I need to post to use more comfortably. And so I do post it, and in the back of my mind, there is often that moment of hesitation about whether I'm going to mar the finish of the pen. But then it really boils down to this is a pen that I'm using, so if it gets a little bit of wear from the cap, I'll live with it. But in my hand, the girth of the pen is absolutely very, very comfortable. I don't really hold the pen so much as it rests in my hand. I do tend to hold it a little bit higher up most of the time, putting my fingers on the threads. Now, the threads are not sharp, and I don't even notice them as they're under my fingers because the threads themselves are very smooth. Now, this nib, as many sailor nibs, has a very pleasant amount of feedback, and it is a bit smoother than some of their other nibs that I've used, and that's because this one is a broad. I really debated when I went to get this whether to get a fine or a broad, but sometimes a pen is just enough fun that you want to make sure that you're putting really fun inks in it. And I found a good way to do that is with a broad nib to where you can really enjoy what you're using, which is the reason that I went ahead and put a shimmering ink in this pen, something most people would frown upon doing with it being a piston filler and being a bit pricier. I don't worry about it. I worry about enjoying my pens, and this pen is absolutely enjoyable. So with that, put in an ink that has a bit more personality, and it makes it that much better. I really enjoy using this pen, and I keep it as a regular part of my rotation. Absolutely top notch. Now for something a bit more standard in comparing writing size. I use Namiki Blue to do this. Now here it is with a Yovo Extra Fine on the left, medium in the middle, and a 1.1 stub on the right. Typically, with Japanese pens, when you look at nib size, they are a size down. But when it comes to the broad nibs, Japanese broads are usually the same as Western broads. So if you like a broad nib, you can know exactly what to expect here, and you're going to get it. It's going to be spot on, perfect. So how does it compare in writing size to other nibs I've used? Looking at the writing of a Sailor Pro Gear Realo with a broad nib. Here it is next to a Lamy All-Star with a broad, an Aurora Optima with a broad, a Levenger True Writer with a broad, a Retro 51 Tornado with a broad, a TWSBI Eco with a broad nib, and a Pilot Custom 823 with a broad nib. So it isn't a review without some size comparisons. Here it is capped. Here it is uncapped. And here it is posted. I've already mentioned it before, but as we're at the size comparison, it's definitely worth mentioning again. I find the pen uncapped just a little bit shorter than I would prefer. If it could be just a little bit longer, it would be perfect so that I don't have to post it in order to use it comfortably. But otherwise, in its girth, it's absolutely normal, maybe a little bit thicker. At this point, we have a dirty pen that we need to go ahead and clean. Be sure to check out the next pen review when we take a look at the Pierre Cardin President. If you want to be able to support not just my channel, but any reviewer, then when you make a purchase, be sure to tell that retailer where you heard about it. Thanks for watching.